Today's tutorial is on the simple way, or my way basically, of paper piecing. I did a lot of research and tried to find a tutorial online that could teach me easily, and I didn't find one, so I just locked myself up in my sewing room until I figured it out, and now I'm going to show you all how to make it. These are different little paper piece blocks. As you can see, a diamond in the center, and if you look closely, you see I have exactly a 1/4 inch from the corner of the diamond to the edge of the fabric here and around here, and I have the same exact seam allowance on all 4 corners, which makes it very nice and precise. So when I go to bump it up, let's say against the next block to sew it together, I have exact seam allowance that I need. I designed this paper piece block for this specific tutorial, so I'll have this up on my website if you want to practice. If you want to use the block, that's fine. If you see here, I have these pieces of the blocks, different parts numbered. You see A1, then A2, A3, and A4. Those numbers correspond to the order in which we're going to sew these pieces together. Okay, so A1 is the center, and generally in paper piecing, that's where you'll start with your centerpiece. Here I have the fabrics that I'm going to be using. This one for the center, and then these 3 for the different parts. Okay. The first thing you want to do is figure out how big you need to cut your pieces. The good thing about paper piecing is that you don't have to have specific cuts. Okay, there's no precise measurement. You simply want to have the piece cover with at least a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all sides of the piece that you need it for. Okay, so you can see what I generally do for a square this big, this is a 4-inch block, how it's going to finish, is I just cut it out a little bit bigger than the entire square. That way I know that this fabric here I want to use for A1 is for sure bigger on all sides to start with. So this is where the complicated part starts, where people have a tough time explaining it. I'm going to try to do my best. I'm going to start stitching my first pieces. Okay, the first ones that I'm going to combine are A1 and A2. Okay, so I have to put fabric behind this piece and fabric behind this piece. First we start with A1, which is the center fabric. I said I'm using this. What you want to do is back up the back of the paper to the back of the fabric. So wrong side to wrong side. Alright, you should be looking at the printed outside of your block, of your foundation, and then the pretty side of the fabric should be facing out. So we have that so far. Next thing I want to do is grab my A2 fabric, which is going to be this one. Notice the strip that I have here is way bigger than this piece, and that's what I want. As a beginner, I recommend you start with pieces that are way bigger just so you can make sure, and as you get better, you can cut down your scraps or use smaller pieces and still be able to get it the piece that you need it to be. But like I said, I've been doing foundation piecing for a couple of months now, and I still find it easier to make sure I have plenty of fabric. What I want to do now is, if you can hold this up to some kind of a light source, that would work. Here I can see that on camera, you can see it a little bit. What I'm going to do is bump up the edge of this fabric at least, let me see if you can see, you see how you can see the shadow of it behind the paper, and I see that it's at least a 1/4 inch up from here. That's what you want. Okay, all the way to the sides. Let me bump it up a little bit more here. If you can get it, I would put it up to a light like that, and you can see that my piece is up. Or you can just eyeball it from here. You see how this corner is higher than this, and the same thing on this end. The edge up here is higher than this, so I know that I'm covering this a 1/4 inch up from there. And now I'm going to take it to my machine and literally stitch on this line between A1 and A2. And I forgot to mention that the A2 fabric is pretty side to pretty side with this one. Okay, so I should be looking at the back side of the fabric when I put it together. Alright, I hope that wasn't too confusing, but these two fabrics need to be pretty side to pretty side, and now we're going to stitch on the line. If you were working with smaller pieces, I would pin them together, but since I can pretty much hold these nice with my hands, I'm just going to hold them and put it under my presser foot. Now I'm going to start stitching a little bit up from where this line actually starts. So a little less than a 1/4 inch. And now I'm just going to start stitching, just a straight stitch. Make sure that you are lowering the stitch length on your machine. This is going to serve 2 purposes. 1, to make sure that it's stitched together nicely. And 2, it's actually going to serve as a source of perforation here for the paper. And it's going to be a lot easier for you to take it off when you're done piecing this. So I'm literally just going to sew on the line. When you get to the end of the line, stitch off a little bit as well. So here comes the interesting part where some people tend to get confused. I have a stitched line on the line that separates A1 and A2. First thing I do is flip the paper back on that line that I stitched. I'll take my ruler and measure 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the paper. You can see that through the paper, okay? Now I'm going to take my rotary cutter and trim away this excess. Done. Now I take it to my pressing surface and press to set that seam in place, and then you just open up the fabric and press that line in place. Okay, just like that. So you can see how it's starting to take shape. This is that angle that you see here. Okay, don't worry about this excess fabric, we'll trim it later. But now that we have these two sewn, okay, the next piece that we need to do in the same manner that we did this one is A3, which is down here. Here I'm going to show you with the light source so you can see it a little better on camera how I'm going to put A3 on. So A3 we said is this bottom corner, okay. I'm going to turn it this way and I'm going to lay my square or little rectangle here, you can see, so that I get, you can see right there the shadow of it. I have more than a 1/4 inch up from this line, and that's what I want. And I know that the piece is going to be enough because this is this little and I have all this fabric left, so that's plenty there. Just make sure that you have, you see here on this side, more than a 1/4 inch. That's good there. And you can't see it good here, but I can feel it. It ends a little bit over. So now the line that I'm going to stitch on is the line that separates A1 and A3, which is this line right here. Again, starting a little bit before I get to the actual intersection there, start stitching with that short stitch length at about a 1.5. Stitch on the line and then a little bit after it. So again, paper back on the line that I sewed, and just tug at that there because those two intersected there, there's no problem. And then I measure a 1/4 inch, cut all the way across, open this up, press the seam in place, right there, and then open it up, just like that. And here it looks like if I'm missing something, but remember, I always leave excess, so that's fine. By the time I trim it down, it's going to be right on. Now all we have to do, you see the angles, both of them here, all we need to do is stitch on A4. Again, I'm attaching A4. Remember always, whenever you're putting a piece of fabric, you want the pretty side towards the pretty side of whatever that center block was. So pretty side down, and you can see there the shadow of it. I have a lot more than a 1/4 inch, and I see that when I turn this back this way, I'll get the piece that I need, roughly, okay? So again, I make sure it's a 1/4 inch past here, a 1/4 inch past this corner, and higher than a 1/4 inch there, and then we're just going to stitch on that last line. Last line we just stitched was right here. Flip my paper back, 1/4 inch from the paper, trim all the way, put the paper back, press to set the seam, and then press open into place. Just like that. Now I know this looks a little crazy, but if I flip it down, and now all we have to do is trim it. So I'm going to trim it. Remember I said there was a dashed line? I'll show you up close again. There's a really tiny dashed line all the way around, and this is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's where you want to cut. Do not cut on this line, okay? This is the finished line for the block. So I'm cutting on that dashed line. If I cut this side, now I need to cut this side. And now for the big reveal. Oops, not yet. And there's the block. So I turn it over. You can see it's nice and perforated. And just tear the paper off here. And there it is, a fully completed paper piece block.